Let's use empowerment. I mean, who could not use some empowerment in life? Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm the Witchling, and in today's video I would like to talk about the Witches Wheel. And this is a continuation of my last video where I gave you an introduction into sigil magic. I want to make a series where I show you the 5 ways how I learned to use sigils and the path I went through finding my own way to make sigils and use sigils. So today I want to start with the first method I use, which is the Witches Wheel. I want to say in the beginning I tried to research the origin of this Witches Wheel and I could not find it. I tried in different locations. I asked some people I knew in the area, but it didn't work out. I couldn't find the origin. The farthest I got was that the Witches Wheel seems to be a modern adaptation used in Wicca to create sigils that is kind of based off the Golden Dawn, like for example, the Rose Cross. That was all I could find out. Like, this is the closest I could get to the origin. So if anyone knows more about it, please let me know, because I'm actually interested in this, because I couldn't find any information about this. And in the books I have, it's just briefly mentioned that this is used in Wicca, but not where it comes from. I also want to say that yes, this is the first method I used. I used it for probably a year before moving on to another method. Spoiler alert, it never worked. Which for me, which doesn't mean it cannot work for you. That's why I want to make this video, because I want to give you the tools to do it yourself. But I still want to be honest and say this never worked for me. And I'm not sure why, but I have kind of an idea why that is. So in the beginning of my path, I didn't know much. The first books I read were Wiccan. So I'm not Wiccan and I never was Wiccan. Oops. But my younger self didn't know that. So I read these Wiccan books and I come across the Witches Wheel in this book. So there's a brief page here that discusses the Witches Wheel. Let me show you that real quick. So on this page, we get the Witches Wheel in a brief explanation how to work with it. So with this I want to show you what not to do, because this is quite a witch fail. But again, I was in the beginning of my path and I didn't know anything basically. I worked with this method before I knew the absolutely amazing thing called cross-referencing. You should always cross-reference what you learn, no matter who you learn it from. You should check different positions from different people on different paths to see a magical working explained and used from different perspectives. It's very important. You also should cross-check like just facts in general. I didn't do any of this. I read this and thought, okay, that's how it's supposed to be. This is how we'll do it. Never worked out. I wonder why. So all I knew from this is you have a word, you turn it into a sigil, and you use that sigil in magical spells. That's all I knew. If you watched the last video, I explained there like the origin of sigils and why I think sigils work, and it's a complex story. It goes all the way back to the beginning of humankind. So to think that I understood sigils and the use of sigils from this tiny ass, maybe I shouldn't swear, from this paragraph, yeah, it's a bit naive, or a lot naive. So don't do it. Also, like, cross-check me. I just want to give you different tools from different perspectives, and tell you my personal use of them so you can find your own way. It's important to find your own way, because not every method works for everyone. And I went through all of these methods to the one I use now, which works very well for me, and it took me 5 years. So it's a journey, you know. witchcraft is a journey. Just because this method never worked for me doesn't mean it could not work for you. That's why I want to take some time to introduce you how to work with the Witches Wheel. So hey, welcome. This is the first method we will look at, the Witches Wheel. I drew this myself, you don't need to do that. There are plenty of online resources you can use to print it out and use the printout to do your sigils. So the first one I want to use is a very easy, let's go for an easy word. Let's go for joy. Here I want to remind you of the importance of choosing your words I discussed in the last video. Let's use orange, so I use different colors so I can use the same wheel multiple times. If you start drawing your sigil, you will basically take all the letters of your word you chose and put them onto this wheel. Traditionally, people put a dot at the beginning and a line at the end. You don't need to do this. I mostly don't do this. You can put nothing, you can put 2 dots, you can put 2 lines, you can put arrows, whatever calls to you. But traditionally, like, it would be done like this. So we start here with J, then we go to the O. I make dots at every letter so I know where each letter sits. This is very helpful for more complex words. And then the last one is the Y. You would make a line here. And there you have it. This is your first sigil. Now you want to transfer it from here to here. So you just go ahead and transfer your sigil. And then you would be done. Now the very interesting part of modifying and changing the sigil so it fits better to your intent and you as an individual starts. So this doesn't really speak joy to me. That could be because I don't use this method at all. Could also be because it's quite sharp, and joy is not that sharp of an emotion. So you could go ahead and, for example, do this. Make it round, put some arrows. If that speaks more joy to you than the first method, you have it. You could also go smaller dots, whatever you feel is necessary for you to feel this energy more. Yeah, there you have it. That would be it already. First sigil. Now we will go ahead and use a word that is a bit more complicated. For this next one I want to use the word, let's use empowerment. I mean, who could not use some empowerment in life? So, a bit more complicated. Don't be afraid or intimidated by this. It will get quite complicated on the wheel, but the more you do it, the better you get. So don't give up. We start again with the E and follow up the numbers to put them all on the wheel. So we have E, goes up to M, then it goes to P, and T. And there you go. So this looks pretty complicated now. That's why we will transfer it onto our paper. So we start again down here with the E, going up, down, and there you have it. So this is actually very interesting because, of course, the sigil, will change depending on where you set your dots. So if I would, for example, not start with the E point here, but start here, and then go to the M up here or here, of course the whole sigil would look different at the end. This is like something that comes down to your intuition. So just go with the flow, do what feels right, don't overthink it. The more you overthink it, the worse it gets, because it interferes with the energy you want to put in, because you want to constantly envision empowerment when you draw the sigil. So I did this method before, but sadly I couldn't use the footage because most of the video was blurred, but I have it right here next to me. And what I think is very interesting is that the sigil for empowerment, and what I think is very interesting is that the sigil I drew the first time for empowerment looks quite differently, even though I used the exact same method. So you can see it's kind of, it still has the same feeling, but it does look very differently. Okay, so for the next one I want to use a sentence, and I want to use, let's use I am happy. Some people would draw this now and treat it as one sequence. I'm not doing this because it doesn't feel good to me. I want to that each word is treated as an individual. Here you have a double letter. Some people just cross a double letter out, or more traditionally you would put a half circle on the letter P. I never did this, and I'm not doing this. I treat this as two individual letters. Now I would start with the I and put a dot here, then with the M, which would be quite easy, 2 lines, and then go to the happy. Start with the H, go all the way up to the A. So now we transfer it again. Here we would have I, M, and then we would go for happy. So this could be, now comes the fun time for modifying this, to put all of these three together. And because I'm running out of space here, I will put this here. So let's start with our base, which is this one. I'll make it a bit more round. Again, go with your intuition, go with the flow. Sometimes it takes a few tries until you find the perfect way to draw this symbol. But that's okay, you have all the time of the world. More sharp, which I personally wouldn't go for, because I still want to maintain the feeling of I am happy, and for me that's not, it doesn't really come in a sharp way. So you can really use your imagination and intuition to move or transform the sigil until you have one you feel comfortable with. So this concludes the first method. I will show you now how I did it the first time, which is quite similar. So this was my first attempt I filmed. As you can see, it's quite similar. We have joy again, which looks similar to our try here. Here, oh, we cannot see that well. I actually put a heart at this end, because I think joy is also combined with love. This sigil for empowerment does look different, and I need to say that I like this one way more than I like this one here. And I think I have so many different sigils. Also the sigil for happiness, of course, is different. We look, you can see here the difference is that at the P, if you look here again, I had 2 points I need to set at the P. And in this example, I set them here. In this one, I set it here. So I got this over-exaggerated curve. And when I used it in the last sigil, it made like a nice little wave, which I really enjoy. In my second time I did this here, this was not the case. I set my point for P differently, which is fine. That's why this shape looks so differently from this one. I think the reason for this is because, of course, here I'm not creating actual sigils, so I'm not putting my intention into the sigil. I'm just recreating the process to show you. And of course it could be that if I did this half a year ago and then I feel like the need to do a sigil for empowerment again, which I have done for some of my sigils. Of course they turn out differently because you're a different person. And I have seen this in my own sigils. My sigil for self-love really changed over the years into the sigil I use now. Don't be insecure about your sigil creation, because you will get better with time and it will come more intuitively to you with time. And it's okay if you have a sigil and you're not feeling a connection to it. It's okay to create a sigil again. But be assured that with everything in magic, nothing is final. So you will always, or hopefully, you will always evolve and learn new things. And that's how your craft changes over time. So I hope this video helped you to explore this method. If you already knew this method, you could tell me if you do something differently, or if you have found another way to make your sigils more personal with this method. Again, I don't use this method, but I hope it can be useful for someone else. Because again, just because something doesn't work for me, that doesn't mean it could not work for you. That's very important. So I hope I see you next week when I will go over the method of the planetary grids. And I hope this video helped you to discover one method how to create sigils. Yeah. Bye.